Hi, everybody, and welcome to a special Tuesday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry blue-furred bovine with matching headphones. It is 2018. It's freezing cold in Florida, and when I say freezing cold, it's going down in the 30s tonight, which people down here can't cope with. It's only a high of like 48 degrees outside, and I know people up in Ohio will say, "Oh, that's warm, Mr. Moohead," and it's like, I get you, because I stay on a mountain, and it gets cold in the fall and in the early spring, and I'm kind of acclimated to it. You should see it's great. You watch people here with earmuffs and 48 degrees. It's like they want to build Frosty the fucking Snowman. It's really pretty awesome. And of course, the inevitable run for bread and milk. That's up and coming. How's everybody doing? We survived 0-16 Sunday, and we managed to live through New Year's, and here we are. And so far, 2018 is no better than 2017. But we have a ways to go, so you never know how it might get better or it might get worse. That's just the joy of living. I got a few things that I want to talk about today. The first one is a headline that just popped up. Cleveland Browns wide receiver Corey Coleman, his half-brother and roommate, are named in a lawsuit over a 2016 New Year's Eve beating that happened inside Coleman's downtown apartment building. Adam Sapp, who is in this instance the plaintiff, says in the suit Browns player John, along with Jonathan Coleman and Jared Floyd and several other unnamed people, attacked him, then carried his bloodied and unconscious body into the building's parking garage and left him lying on a speed bump. Well, I mean, and the lawsuit seeks at least $25,000. This one kind of sounds a little strange to me. I mean, why did everybody want to beat this guy down? That's the first question. And if there's unnamed defendants who attacked him, it sounds like he was like 1-on-6, 1-on-7. Then why would $25,000 make up for past and future medical costs? You would be looking for more than that, I would think, if you were beaten that badly. But there is one big hole in Adam Sapp's story. If they would have said that Corey Coleman carried his bloodied and unconscious body into the parking garage and then dropped him on a speed bump, I mean, the jury would believe that, because then you could bring up football footage to show that drops and Corey Coleman are synonymous. Yes, I did want to start the program with that story. Still no word on whether Kevin Love is going to play tonight against Portland. He has an illness. Of course, it's not being discussed what that illness is, but it's either a cold or a flu, because this is the cold and flu season. What we do know is that Isaiah Thomas will be coming off the bench for the first time, and we'll talk about that just a little bit later in the show. I wanted to start this whole thing off with the NFL Network report that the NFL Network ran a report that John Dorsey was going to make naming an offensive coordinator his primary first initiative as the general manager of the Cleveland Browns. But when asked about it, Hugh Jackson told the NFL Network that, with all due respect to John Dorsey, that it would be his call and not Dorsey's on an offensive coordinator. Now, guy who's 1-31, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it, folks? How does a guy have big balls after going 1-31 and he's talking about his superior? At what point does Jimmy Haslam do something about this? Because already Hugh Jackson is not working with the general manager. The general manager wants a fucking offensive coordinator. He hires him because they didn't give the general manager an opportunity to hire a head coach. My belief is that if this really carries water and nobody has come up to deny the story, okay? Dorsey has not defended Jackson, and Jackson has not defended Dorsey in this report. It is going ignored. There is time for John Dorsey to rescind and not accept the Browns' offer as general manager. And if I were his agent, I would tell him to do so immediately, to get out of Cleveland, because it is a career wrecker. If you're a general manager and you can't name personnel, then you might as well leave the job now before you end up with a record that rivals the 1-31 of Hugh Jackson. Nobody would want to go down on that ship, really. Especially a guy who has experience, a winning record, and a pretty damn good reputation in the NFL. All it takes is 1 year in this muck, and it will ruin that guy's reputation, and it will make him virtually unhireable in the future, because it will really make people question his judgment for taking the job with these sets of circumstances. You know, it's like anybody who would accept the GM position but not be able to bring in his own head coach. I question why he's taking the job in the first place, and why that 1-31 coach is carrying so much sway with Jimmy Haslam. It is a remarkable thing. But it's interesting to correspond with this particular story. Hugh Jackson is going to be interviewing a number of candidates for the OC, but the first name that's come up is Sean Ryan. Let me explain something. Sean Ryan is the quarterback's coach of the Houston Texans. And of course, that's a situation where, because Deshaun Watson got off to this great start before getting hurt, that now the Texans quarterback coach wants to become an offensive coordinator. He's never called plays before. I'll repeat that. He has never called plays before. Now, why would you hire somebody as an offensive coordinator who had never called plays before? When your head coach is a former offensive coordinator and refuses to give up the responsibility of calling the plays. And you know something? I'm really tired of this whole Hugh Jackson bullshit. Just totally fed up with it. Everything, it's like polluted water, folks. It's like mercury poisoning. You know, hold on a sec here, folks. Hey, keep it down in there. God, I'm hearing a phone conversation in the back of my headset, and I hope you're not hearing that. Here's the deal. I'm glad that Sean Ryan was in the right place at the right time. Nobody expected Deshaun Watson to be as good, as quick as he was. And if he can parlay that into an offensive coordinator job, even a non-play calling one with the Browns, and escape after a year, then he's at least established the credential of being an offensive coordinator. I know why Sean Ryan wants it. I just don't know why Cleveland Browns management and ownership is sitting still for this crap. We have a head coach who can't call plays, and he wants to hire a guy as an offensive coordinator who's never called plays, and a guy who's basically not even an offensive coordinator, who will just continue with Hugh's bizarre concept of offense. And all it is one gigantic excuse for Hugh Jackson not to turn the reins over to anybody. And I think if the organization can't see this, if Jimmy Haslam can't see this, then they're going to go 0-16 forever. The league has to step in. There's something that is unholy about this whole thing, and I don't really understand why. I don't get it. I just don't get it. And maybe I never will. Maybe all of this will end. Maybe this will all end, and I just will never get it. I don't know. But it is frustrating, because if you're trying to make sense out of something, it makes it very difficult. I see that Tony is in the chat room. I'm not sure whether I'm more shocked that they're actually keeping Hugh or that John Dorsey has no pride and hasn't resigned this position for better positions. The Packers' job just opened up. So did Arizona's. I find it incredibly hard to believe any coach with any self-worth would accept a position in Cleveland. And Tony says, tell Babber I'll take a double cheeseburger with a large fry. Moo. That's not what she was on the phone about, Tony. I know that you dream of your double cheeseburger and large fry. Me, I can't eat that shit anymore anyway. And I'm a cow. I don't eat that stuff. Eat more chicken. All right. So I don't know how this all goes down. All I know is Sean Ryan is not the guy that you need as an offensive coordinator. Another thing is with this specter, which is, I think, a media specter of Hugh Jackson going to the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think there's any truth to it or any chance that it happens. You know, there are some people who are saying, well, I guess Jimmy's trying to play poker with Mike Brown. That cheap fucker in Cincinnati? No, you're not going to play poker with Mike Brown. Hugh Jackson is worth nothing. He'll be paid nothing, and he shouldn't even be in Cleveland, and he shouldn't even be in Cincinnati. And if you're Andy Dalton, maybe you're hoping that Hugh comes back because your position is now going to be under fire in Cincinnati. Howdy Doody's quarterback days are dwindling. I don't know. I don't think there's any truth of Cincinnati wanting Hugh Jackson that bad. And if they did, they sure as hell wouldn't say anything about it anyway. And the bottom line is, negotiating on a trade for a head coach, he should have been released after the 16th game. Done. Ay, 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 ay. And meanwhile, the players are complaining, because they're sick and tired of having the people above them in the pyramid saying that they've got no talent. And this is another thing that finger pointing accomplishes. You see, the problem with finger pointing is you hurt and offend people, and it's not the people that you are pointing your fingers at necessarily. If you're having an argument with a person who is a general manager or a front office person, and you jump into the fray by saying, well, you're the one who selected these people, and look, they don't have any talent. We have to play a perfect game in order to even have a chance of winning. All right? Hugh Jackson. What you're really saying is, the hand I've been dealt sucks, you know? My father died of cancer when I was 18, and that was a bad hand. You know, he was dealt. And I've been dealt a bad hand. That's Hugh Jackson, some professional fucking head coach. And then they all have to take turns saying it, including Greg Williams. I've never played so much zone in my life. ... You know, here's why my defense is giving up points in the red zone like there's no tomorrow. I can't blitz because ... And it's like the 2,000-pound elephant sitting in the middle of the room because the players have no talent. And I talk about it on the air because it's obvious that the team doesn't pass the eye test. But the coaching staff doesn't pass the eye test either. And nobody is playing optimally as far as their ability is concerned because of the whole circumstance surrounding the franchise. So you know something? If you're going to come out and say these players are really no talent players, then you've got to stand up and say, you know, our front office is a no talent front office who's never done the job before. And our head coach is a no talent head coach who can't even find a challenge flag. And you know something? If the players had any fucking balls whatsoever, they'd come back and say that. But, you know, they've been emasculated by the losing a long time ago. Really kind of a sad circumstance. Meanwhile, people are asking me in comments on the YouTube post-game show thread, So, you smartass, what would you do, Mr. Moohead? And it's like, I'm so sick and tired of answering that question, I could scream. What would you do to make things better, Mr. Moohead? All right. First of all, let's talk quarterback, shall we? Because we're a little bit more educated now. I think Baker Mayfield would be perfect for the Browns. And I know everybody's just going to start screaming. And I'm going to say, but hold on a sec. Hear me out. Hear me out. He's proven that he can play for a team that has no defense. He's proven that he can get a team into overtime in an important game. And he's proven that he will accept insidiously bad play calling at critical moments of games by going overly conservative in overtime, handing the ball off, and not even attempting to throw a ball down the field because the coach lost his nerve. And he's willing to sit in front of cameras and accept the loss because he's perfect for Cleveland. Now, I'll leave you to answer whether I'm being sarcastic or not. What would I do? You know something? Baker Mayfield, Josh Rosen, anybody is not going to start for the Cleveland Browns next year. Would you please pull your heads out of your assholes? You can't play a young quarterback in this situation because it's the same situation we've had the last 2 years. And why would the third year be any different? We are still at ground zero thanks to Jimmy Haslam and the stumble bums he hires. Still at ground zero. You cannot put a young quarterback behind a bunch of bozos who are 1-31. If you watched the second half of the Georgia-Oklahoma game, at least what I saw is a 6'1", 220-pound butterball of a quarterback named Baker Mayfield, who's not very fast, not very agile. And when he didn't have time to throw the ball, he looked an awful lot like Cody Kessler because they all look alike when they're laying on their back, rolling on the ground. You don't want to put him in a situation like with the Browns, no. So I'm going to say one more time, the quarterback position will not really matter because he's not going to play next year or the year after. All right? Whoever you draft is not going to play the first 2 years because you don't have enough players in front of them. And they have no experience. So here's what you do. I see that Kirk Cousins got a lukewarm reception from Gruden, his head coach, after a 7-9 season, which we kill for, okay? But it's the second year in a row they didn't make the playoffs, and, you know, that's Daniel Snyder's way of saying, yeah, what is it, the Scandal song? Goodbye to you, goodbye to you. Patty Smythe, John McEnroe's wife. All right. I don't know. I'm not saying get Kirk Cousins, but I'm saying he'll be available like Alex Smith, like the others will be available. You have to get the veteran quarterback in. But you see, what I would do is completely different than what Jimmy Haslam's doing, because I would have fired Hugh Jackson. I would have allowed John Dorsey to hire a head coach and the offensive coordinator. So what I would have is the veteran quarterback that I decide is the guy I'm going after would have to have experience running an offense that my head coach had familiarity with, and the offensive coordinator I'd hire would have to have familiarity with that offense too. All right? I'd have everybody singing from the same sheet of music. So that even if it's not the greatest scheme in the world, everybody is in agreement that that's what they should be doing, and they'll all be preaching the same gospel. And the veteran quarterback will know the terminology inside out and will be able to teach it to the young quarterback who will not play for the first 2 years he's with the franchise. Versteh? Versteh, German for understand. That isn't hard to figure out if you're a quasi-intelligent person. So does the quarterback matter the most? No. No. The general manager, then the head coach, then the offensive coordinator, then the quarterback, okay? That's 4 fucking people who have to be on the same page. Then you draft a quarterback if you'd like, depending on how much you like the quarterbacks that are up and available to be drafted. Knowing full well that nobody except the veteran quarterback is going to play for the first 2 years. All right? So before you get itchy trigger finger and decide you've got to have this quarterback and that quarterback and you Johnny Manziel it, just remember he ain't going to play for 2 years. And maybe that will steady your hand a little bit before you pick your nose. Second of all, if we don't get a quarterback, boo fucking who? You don't go from 0-16 to going to the playoffs, folks. You just don't do it. You're going to be bad for plenty of time. If you bring in Kirk Cousins or Alex Smith, you're going to be really bad. You're still going to have a high pick. You're not going to have the number 1 pick, but you're going to have a high pick. But just think what you can do. Just think. You can get a wide receiver with legitimate pass catching skills and blazing speed to go along with the 1 year that's left of Josh Gordon. So right off the bat, your veteran quarterback will have 2 fast, large wide receivers and Njoku, who hopefully the veteran quarterback will actually look at during the course of progressions, because I believe that kid can play. All right. So you have the semblance of a passing game. You hold on to Rashard Higgins and you get rid of Ricardo Lewis. Here's my thought. Ricardo Lewis is a horrible special teams player, and he's a horrible pass receiver. He can't block. He can't catch. And if he's so fast, he can't run patterns either. He played for a school that didn't have a forward passing game, and he still managed to drop 20% of the passes thrown his way, even though Auburn hardly passed the football. Get rid of him. Rashard Higgins is a slot guy. All right. If you want to go back to 1999, think Darren Shiverini. Why not? We'll go there. If you want a guy who's a slot-only receiver, he's not a starting wide receiver. He's a guy who comes in with certain packages. You have outside speed, and you have a guy like Rashard Higgins who really does have good hands, and you can isolate him in the slot against linebackers if you have an intelligent offensive coordinator and an intelligent head coach. Then a guy like Higgins becomes an advantage because he's a guy who's not going to get you the big yardage down the field, but he is going to use the middle of the field, all right? And he's going to catch the ball that's thrown to him. So I keep him, all right? Crowell's gone, folks. He ain't sticking around for another year of Hugh. So you need a running back. And you need a running back from the draft. And let me explain why. I can't believe I have to explain this shit. Look at the goddamn record of free agent running backs coming to Cleveland. I remember a guy named Tate. I remember a guy named Eric Brett. I remember a guy named Jamal Lewis. I mean, and we can go on and on and on because, I mean, and I've tried to push names out of my mind, for God's sakes. Running backs have broken down legs, and because they get hit low consistently, they are the guys whose legs give out the easiest. Even the Steelers found a guy who could run for 100 yards against us, who was basically not even playing at the NFL level for almost 3 years. You get somebody with fresh legs who has the ability to make a certain type of play for you. If you're going to keep Duke Johnson, which you should, all right, Duke Johnson's not an every down running back. You need somebody who has size. You don't need a scat back. You need somebody with size who can move the pile. We're talking about first downs. We're not talking about touchdowns right now, folks. We're just talking about moving the sticks and getting ourselves in a scoring position. So you need a running back, all right? And it has to come from the draft, not from free agency. Now, here's a situation where you might want to do some considering. Joe Thomas may not be back, even though he's remained relatively passive about the whole situation in Cleveland. You know, as Tristan Thompson proves, Iron Men were meant to be bent. And once a guy loses Iron Man status, it's likely that more injuries will follow. Love Joe Thomas, great left tackle. But A, he may not decide to come back and his family might convince him not to. Or two, he may come back, but he might not last for very long. You cannot survive with Spencer Drango on the left side of the line. I think we've learned that this year. The guy couldn't even block run stuffers. He was giving up sacks to run stuffing nose tackles. I mean, what can I tell you? He's just not equipped to play at this level. We've got Sean Coleman on the other side, who is horrendous, who misses assignments, who holds, gets beaten regularly. You need a left tackle and a right tackle, all right? And I know you don't have to go at the top of the draft to get those players. You don't. But you might want to decide whether you want to try to find a veteran free agent left tackle and right tackle, figuring maybe that Thomas is going to make it halfway through the season, but you need to put in somebody with experience if he goes down, or an experienced right tackle. So I could see free agency, utilizing free agency to get a sound, experienced offensive lineman. So we don't have to draft that. If we do draft it, you can get that in the later rounds. It's not that big a deal, because what you need in abundance are defensive backs and safeties. We don't have them on this team. So right off the bat, you know, I'm going to pass on a quarterback. I'm not even going to worry about it. I'm going to get the veteran quarterback. I'm going to get a running back. I'm going to get at least one wide receiver, probably two wide receivers, but really one of my top picks is going to go into the 1 or 4 is going to go into a can't miss wide receiver. And I don't consider Corey Coleman a no miss wide receiver. Okay. Because he's going to come back, Corey Coleman, but boy, with clouds, dark clouds over his head. People are wondering whether he can play at this level or not. Then you need defensive backs and you need safeties. And, you know, there are a few people that maybe you can hold on to, but most of the roster is depleted in that area. They're not good enough. So you got to have that. You keep the kicker, Zane Gonzalez, who I think has a chance to be a very fine young kicker. Let him develop his confidence. You keep Colquitt as your punter. If he held up this year, is punting as much as he had to, that's fine. You're going to keep Kaiser on the roster because he's 21 years old and you drafted him. You're gonna end up cutting Cody Kessler because nobody seems to like him. So that's done. So your quarterbacks are going to be the veteran you bring in. We'll call him Alex Smith for lack of anything else to call him. and that way you satisfy John Dorsey. You have Kaiser as your backup, and then you have, if you go with a quarterback, you're going to have to either keep Hogan or, because I'm not drafting a quarterback. Defensively, you've got Schobert, who's proven to be a decent linebacker. It seems to me you have Collins, who got hurt, who's an adequate linebacker, not as good as what the press was making him out to be, but nothing that comes from New England is really ever that good for us. You need to get another pass rusher on your defensive line because, quite honestly, Myles Garrett was less than impressive. And if you're just going to allow him to be double teamed every time for the line of scrimmage, he is not Jerome Kearse. Okay. He is not the freak. So you're going to need another pass rusher. So Danny Shelton comes back, of course. You've got some guys like Ogunjobi, guys who can stop the run for the most part, unless they play the Pittsburgh Steelers and decide not to defend the run. But you've got enough on the defensive line to get by. You've got Duke Johnson. You have the rookie running back. All right. You have Njoku, who's your tight end, and you'll have two fast wide receivers. You'll have Corey Coleman as a number 3 guy, and you will have Higgins as a slot receiver. I hope I'm making myself eminently clear to the dope who says that I'm a smart ass. I consider what I'm saying, but remember, the proviso in all of this is that Hugh Jackson should have been gone, and the offensive coordinator and the head coach should be hired by the general manager. Now, just that I would remind everybody about that. Now we got people in the chat room. Hey, Vicious Sid, how you doing, my friend? Stephen Rose, I like Bill Cowher as the Browns' next head coach. Yeah, right. Sergeant Slaughter doesn't need to get slaughtered. Jim Farkas saying, what happened to Sammy Coates? He made one good play. That's all Sammy Coates has in him, and the Steelers know that. The Steelers don't make deals or get rid of players that opponents in their division can get. Sammy Coates can't catch the football. He had dropsy in Pittsburgh, and he doesn't run good patterns, all right? Boy, Stephen Rose is really doing acid, and I'm not even going to read that. Who do you have the Browns drafting at number 1? I don't yet. Joe Thomas is not coming back. Jim, you're probably right, and I that's why I presume that we have to bring in an experienced hand at left tackle. And Baker Mayfield is like Manziel, right? Yeah, he has all the earmarks of a college quarterback. He's got the Harry High School attitude. He's the fiery guy who can will himself to do this and that, but at that level, the next level, it takes more than will. It takes ability, skill, and fast reads. Mr. X is saying, I'm just so tired of the same crap this year. It's worse than ever, and I'm sure the stupid bastards won't make things better. Good attitude there, Mr. X. You start out your new year, and I hope you don't take an overdose of pills. Jim Farkas, what do you think about kneeling and can't win a game? Kneeling? I think it's appropriate in church. I don't know what you're asking me. If I pay somebody a lot of money and she doesn't, well, no, forget it. We won't go there. What do I think about kneeling? I think if you're scrubbing the kitchen floor, it's an inevitability. Politically, I don't think anything. There's no reason for politics to be associated with the NFL. None whatsoever. All right. Let's move on to the Cleveland Cavaliers, shall we? The Cleveland Cavaliers have a problem on their hands. Now, some people would say that it's not a bad problem. Other people would say, well, it's a problem. J.R. Smith is a verifiable problem. Bad news follows this guy's career around like there's no tomorrow. And you realize that if his girlfriend is not even married, if his girlfriend had a difficult childbirth, that has nothing to do with J.R. Smith's problems, okay? And I think everybody felt for that situation. J.R. Smith's problems are caused by J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith's family would be the first to agree. J.R. Smith does not have a consistent attitude when it comes to playing basketball. His mind wanders. He gets focused on the wrong things. Right now, I have good information that LeBron James is done with J.R. Smith, that he can no longer communicate to him. Because you see, folks, J.R. Smith has a problem like Delonte West had a problem. He has an emotional problem. And what he needs is professional help, not the kind of help that a teammate can give him. Where we are with JR right now is he's not trying particularly hard, and he's passing up open shots. And he's trying to rush passes to people who aren't open. He's allowing people to take contested shots before he even looks at an open look. He's not scoring points, and as Mitchell, the rookie for the Utah Jazz, has proven, he's not moving his feet on defense, and he's not helping us out in any meaningful way. He should not even be in the rotation. And I don't mean the starting rotation, I mean the team rotation. Because his attitude is bringing everybody down. And he is pining when he's sitting around. He has this dull, lifeless expression on his face. He is a problem. Now, we have another problem in Iman Shumpert, who will eventually come back. But I got to tell you, the only thing good we can say about Iman Shumpert now is if he were to come back and actually play defense, that makes him one step better than J.R. Smith. Because the J.R. Smith we're getting right now shoots as badly or even worse than Iman Shumpert. So if Shumpert throws up a few bad-looking bricks, at least if he's playing defense, it's a step up. But this is the problem that the Cavaliers have right now. We've got a bunch of players who haven't been playing who are coming back to play. It started with Tristan Thompson, who's been nothing short of hideous since he's come back, mainly because he shouldn't be playing in the second rotation. Shouldn't be playing in the first rotation either. And his bad play goes back to last year, not just this year. What we can say about Tristan is not about the Kardashians, but about Tristan. He got paid. And since he got paid, he's not nearly the player that he was. Here's another thing. If you expect Dwayne Wade to be the sixth man of the year candidate for the Cleveland Cavaliers, coming off the bench, sacrificing himself to lead the second unit to be better and stronger, let him play the fucking game he can play. Channing Frye did nothing wrong to lose his playing time, and I take exception to Ty Lue for benching him. Channing Frye gave the Cavaliers way more than Tristan Thompson. And let me explain. Does he jump as high? No. Is he as fast? No. Does he shoot free throws better? Yes. But what he does that is better than Tristan Thompson is that he gave us a little bit of everything. Channing Frye was like a sampler platter you get at your favorite restaurant. You get a few rebounds, a few pick and rolls, high screens. Channing Frye was rolling to the basket and actually was rumbling down the lane and having a little soft touch off the backboard and getting some layups. So he was rebounding a little, assisting a little, and the perpetual threat from behind the three-point arc that opened the floor up. But Channing Frye wasn't really shooting that many threes. But the threat of leaving him wide open to shoot a three is what enabled Dwayne Wade to be that potential sixth man of the year candidate. Because when the second unit was winning, Dwayne Wade was taking his man down low, or as Austin would say, for 4,320 times in his career, getting a mouse in the house. Going up against backup point guards who were neither seasoned nor particularly large, Dwayne Wade was able to post And post means not only just going to the basket into the paint, but backing the man down and converting those into nice 12 to 14-foot fadeaways that he can make, and to be able to pull guys out with the spread floor, to be able to find a lane to drive, to get to the free throw line, or to finish at the rim. You put Tristan Thompson on the floor, congesting the middle, all of it goes away because nobody's going to guard Tristan Thompson far away from the basket. And if he screens, he has to roll. So all of a sudden, the second unit becomes the same second unit we had last year. We end up with the constant deli pick and roll scenario where Tristan Thompson comes out, he raises a screen, and he rolls to the basket, and they try to lob the ball to him. Meanwhile, Dwayne Wade is turned into deli. And that's not what made the second unit go. Get Tristan Thompson's ass off the floor. Get Channing Frye back on the floor. All right? That's what's next. All right? Derrick Rose, I don't care about. Another dark cloud guy who's an unhappy camper. I don't want to see him. But all these people are coming back, and it's all the garbage that's coming back at us. And there are people who really you don't want to turn to unless you absolutely have to. If somebody goes down with an injury, then Derrick Rose is going to play. But you got to choose your team. And that second unit, I want to see Cedi Osman on the floor because he's a motor guy. He's trying hard. And that's what we need. He can run the floor. He can catch you occasionally in transition. And when he was playing, we were winning. And the second unit was consistently winning with Channing Frye and Cedi Osman on the floor, not with Tristan Thompson on the floor. Do you notice that with Tristan Thompson on the floor, that Kyle Korver can't even get any looks anymore? Doesn't this make you wonder? Well, because you don't have to guard the fifth guy. So you can just, all Tristan's going to do is hang around the basket for a miss and try to get an offensive rebound. It's not going to help anybody. You need to open the court up not only for Dwayne Wade, but for Kyle Korver and for Channing Frye. Because you need those guys to hit threes so that your second unit can score points. Because right now, with Calderon, the starting lineup has not been coming out and pouring the points on like they should be. Now, Isaiah Thomas is going to start out coming off the bench, but I guarantee you that won't last long. But the minute restriction will. And I think what Ty Lue will eventually do is he will start Isaiah Thomas here in the not very distant future and maybe bridge the gap between Isaiah and Dwayne Wade with a little bit of Calderon, who's used to playing with the first unit, to kind of ease the re-entry of Isaiah Thomas's minute structure and to allow Dwayne Wade to also play the proper number of minutes so he doesn't get overly fatigued on his 35-year-old body. That's what I see. But a lot of pieces that don't yet fit together. And it starts tonight. Don't be looking for Isaiah Thomas to be heroic because even LeBron James noticed he's got no rhythm. And you know what that means? He's like the white guy in the disco. He got no rhythm. He hasn't played in 7 months. He needs to get out in real time. He's going to get exhausted on the floor. We don't want to see him get hurt. Just play him in small patches and let him get acclimated to running the floor. Let him get acclimated to the speed and the tempo of the game and to what the Cavaliers are trying to do on the floor. We play the Portland Trailblazers tonight, and of course, Damian Lillard's going to be back. He's been gone with a hamstring pull, but of course, they all come back for Cleveland. So it isn't like we're going to be playing a vastly weakened Portland Trailblazer team. The news that Kevin Love is sick, we're not 100% sure at this point that Kevin Love is even going to play. So there you have that. No, I don't have any prediction. I have no prediction about the game. What I'm hoping is that the Cavaliers will take all of these disparate pieces and put them together and wind up with a good, solid Whole, W-H-O-L-E. They're really having a perfect season parade. Are you kidding me? The brainchild of Chris McNeil. Well, that ain't no fucking brainchild. You know, we don't need more negative, all right? It's bad enough that all the piling on is starting in the national press. The players, I mean, they don't need this. Terry Pluto is writing an article, The Case for Kaiser, and it's a pointless read. Don't waste your time reading it. The fact is, Kaiser will be back next year. You don't draft a guy in the second round and not bring him back when he's 21 years old. What you're going to do is you're going to let him sit like he should have sat this year. All right? He's going to be your second string quarterback. So let him learn, and let him learn from a veteran. Let him see somebody else do it, and let him reflect upon what happened to him in his first year, and let him gain a little bit of humility, because he's not likely to be a starting quarterback for much of his career. That's what I can tell you, folks. I hope my wisdom has come in handy on this special Tuesday edition of Moohead Radio. Thanks a lot to everybody for tuning in. We'll be back again on Friday as we start the regular Moohead shows all over again. I'm trying to get a hold of Mooshell to find out how she's doing, but I know she has a doctor's appointment today, so I'm going to be in touch with her later, and I hope that maybe she can join us on Friday. Let's hope that that's the case. Thanks a lot for jumping in, and I will see you again on Friday. Until then, hasta la vista, pasture heads. Have a good day and a good night.